limited by time, you said, yeah? Guess what? We're limited by time. We have limitations. Now, some of these are real limitations, which are just time, space, energy. I can't run as fast or as long as I used to. That's a limitation. But some of the limitations are ones we put on ourselves, and we don't actually realise it. I've just been limited. Somebody's tidied up for me again. That's there for a reason. See, I'm limited by how well I can present by the people around me who are trying to be really helpful. That is there for a reason. I want to talk about limitations we put on ourselves. Who's seen these ones? They're on the table. Has anyone tried it? We come to the conclusion. What's the minimum number of straight lines to go through all of those dots without taking your pen off the paper? No? You're thinking inside the box. You put a limitation on there. Anyone else? Any advances on 5? Well, let me tell you, it can be done in 4. But let's go outside the box. The box you've limited yourself is the dots. Who told you the dots are a limitation? There you go. You can do it in 4. Let me tell you, actually, you can do it in 3. The 4 answer is the one you'll see in all the books if you go and look that up. Go onto YouTube, 9 dots puzzle, you'll find that answer. What you won't find, because they don't think outside the box, is this answer. Never took my pen off the paper. 3 lines. No, that's reading the question and understanding the question. You limited yourself by not reading and understanding your objective. Let me take it one step further. I'll do it in 1 line. It's not origami. You can do it in no lines. My assistants, can I have my... You can do it with no lines. I'm just going to show you how. I will advise with this solution, don't try it at home. I've got a plastic tablecloth here, and I've got a wooden floor. This is really not good to try on a carpet, especially if you've got one of those nice light beige carpets. That is a bowl of coffee. That is a sheet of paper. There you go. Through all the lines, through all the dots. No line. Wait till that dries. You'll have a brown line or a brown large dot. Thinking outside. Can someone get me a tissue or something? Bit of kitchen roll, please. I can get even cleverer with it. I gave this problem to my staff at work, and one of them came up with, he folded it over so all the dots were on top of each other and stabbed a pen through the middle of the dots. That could count as 1 line. Have another solution. I'm just going to run out. I don't want to spend all my time on showing you how to do it. But if you fold it up correctly, so that so you fold it up like that, so the fold goes through the dots. then fold it around so all the dots are together. Then using a pen, put that there, one dot, it's going to cover all of them. Thinking outside the box. Do you want to know the final solution that one of my staff came up with? Completely different one. Can I just have that one back a minute? Can I have the stander back? I will just show you very quickly how to do it. One line. Actually, this is no straight lines without taking your pen off the paper. There you go. No straight lines. What limited you in your thoughts? You'd boxed in situations, how you've got to think. Oh, can we just lose this, please, guys? Thank you. Otherwise, I'm going to go straight into it, and we're going to have coffee all over the floor. What I want to say, the question is thinking outside the box something that's new and us being clever, or is that God's personality? I want to tell you that God's personality is to think outside the box. The cross was outside the box. Satan had an idea. He knew he could limit God. He could get man to sin. He could separate mankind from God. He got God under control. There's nothing God could do about it to come up with a permanent solution. All right, we can introduce a little bit of sacrifice, but the lamb just lasts for a short while, and then have to have another one year on year. And what happens if we then shut down the temple and get in the way? Then you've got no sacrifice. Mankind's separated from God. But then God came up with another idea. Anybody heard of Jesus? I want to say to you, bringing Jesus back from the dead was not a solution to the problem of Satan arranging to have Jesus killed. It was God's outside of the box, never before thought of plan. Because if it wasn't outside of the box, Satan would have thought of it first, and he would not have killed Jesus. Fair point? You're not going to do what God wants to happen if you know it's going to meet his plans, not yours, if you're Satan. God thinks outside the box. How do we know it was fully, completely contemplated by God, and not just God suddenly thought after Jesus had been crucified, I'll have to come up with a solution? Because God's clever, he could actually see a problem, decide I'll solve it at that point. Well, the reason we know is in Acts chapter 2, when Peter's giving his first sermon, he's saying, this man was handed over to you by God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge, and you, with the help of wicked men, put him to death by nailing him to the cross. But God raised him from the dead, freeing him from the agony of death, because it was impossible for death to keep its hold on him. Did you hear the words at the start of that? God's deliberate plan and foreknowledge. The cross was not just God trying to get it sorted out, and God was nearly beaten by Satan because he hadn't thought of the cross. God knew the cross, he planned it. That's why Jesus was saying to God, if you can find another way, take it away from me. But he says, no, your will first. And because Jesus said your will first and went through with the plan, God was able to move. Satan, he just knew if he killed an animal, it's going to never come back to life. It didn't even cross his mind to think outside of the box that Jesus might come back. Anybody ever thought Satan actually tries to do things in your life where you need an out-of-the-box solution? Let me give you a few examples of things where Satan has got an expected response to something he sets up. You're just getting ready to come out to church, and something happens, and you and the wife have an argument. Anybody ever had that happen? Just at the most inconvenient time. Inside the box solution is to prove you're right because you're a man. Yeah? You're all men, so you're always right. It's always the women that are wrong. We do understand that. The trouble is, sometimes it may not be wise to let them know that. Okay? Especially if you don't want to sleep on the sofa that night. Okay? What you could surprise Satan by doing is just saying, look, dear, let's talk about this later. Let's go and worship God first and sort it out later. You're diffusing the situation. You bring it down. Satan doesn't expect it because he knows you're a man. You've got to be in charge. You've got to be right. Satan knows how to try and feed your ego. But you do an out-of-the-box solution. Satan thought he had the in-the-box solution. In fact, his box he was thinking of was a coffin. But Jesus was outside the coffin. Problem with the cross is you can't put when your arms are out like that, you can't fit someone in a coffin. Jesus could not fit in a coffin. I want to say to you, are you looking around at your life and you're thinking, situations, whatever's happening, the way my life's going, things need to change, something's got to give. Is it time to move away from your in-the-box solutions, the way you normally think? Is it time to get on side with an unlimited God and come up with an unlimited solution, which is going to work better? Anybody ever heard of a guy called Einstein? He's supposed to have been vaguely intelligent and been able to work out things. One of my favourite quotes from Einstein is not E equals MC squared. My favourite quote from him is, the first sign of madness is keep doing the same things and expecting a different result. The reason we keep doing the same things is because that's the way our mind works. That's the box we put ourselves into. Wife has an argument. Wife tells me something's wrong just before we go to church. I've got to respond. Try thinking something different. If suddenly you start saying, look, dear, I love you, but I want to go to church. Let's have a good time. Let's sort this out later. You're going to get a different response. You're not going to end up getting to church in a bad mood and having to wait until the third worship song before you can get into God's presence, it feels. Let's start thinking outside the box. I say, there's a couple of things I've asked here. Have you got a major problem? There's no logical way to solve it. Do you need God's outside the box, never before thought of solution? Or are you just bored with your Christian life? Do you need God's outside the box, never before thought of solution? Because sometimes we can think out of the box ourselves, but sometimes we need God to do some outside the box thinking, and we just need to do some listening. So I want to start off by thinking outside the box. Solving the problems by thinking outside the box. Sometimes we've got problems. Anybody here got no problems? You can switch off for the next 10 minutes of this talk. You don't have to worry about this next bit because I'm sure most of you here have got no problems and you're quite comfortable with your life the way it is. Yeah? Okay, I didn't seem to quite get a response to that one. When we come to solving problems, what are you solving? I want to ask the question, are you solving the cause of the problem or are you solving the symptoms? If you're having an argument with the wife, the symptom is the argument. What's the cause? The cause is Satan trying to separate you from God's presence. The cause might be something you've done. You can get at it. Let's look at the cause. If it's just Satan wanting you out of God's presence, well, let's just step into God's presence. Let's solve it. The problem with that thing, the 9 dots, I kind of like looked at this and I just came with a few different ones. Problem, smallest number of lines you can draw in the 9-point box is 5. Symptom is 5 is the smallest number most people can work out. How do you solve that problem? Well, you work out what the cause is. Staying inside the square. That's your cause. What's the solution to staying inside the square limits you? You go outside the square. And that's why we did the first solution. To do one line, you need all the points to be in a line. Well, that's a problem. The symptom is we can't draw a line through all the dots, a straight line through all the dots. The cause, the dots aren't in a line. So what do? We put them in a line. The other thing is you can't do one line without moving them into a line. Well, why not? Instead of moving the pen, why not move the paper? The cause is it just doesn't work in theory. The problem is, let's just move the paper. We've got the cause of the problem, the fact that they're not in a line, so we rearrange the line to fit. The next problem I caused was if we do that coffee one, the problem with that coffee solution, you could do it with ink, but I thought if ink gets on the floor, it's going to make a real mess. So I chose not to do ink, just so coffee was an easy and safe option. But that's too easy to make. That problem is, sorry, that's really easy to make a mess if you did that one. You wouldn't want to use that solution apart from in a very limited environment. If you were Mythbusters, you might use that as a solution in the workshop, or if you're on stage, you might use it. But in everyday life, you wouldn't use it. So the symptom is worry, fear, potential for problems. The cause is it's a pretty naff solution. It's a bad way of working, really. Solution is drop the straight line. The question was never how to do it with straight lines only. It just says there's a minimum number of straight lines. You've got to understand the problem. The cause is you never understood the problem. Think of that. How many problems have you got in your life and you don't understand what's causing that problem? Of course, you all know why the problem's caused. Your wife doesn't understand why it's very important to have her cook a nice cooked breakfast every Sunday morning while you're lying in bed. Her problem is she just doesn't understand your need as a man to be waited on by a lady. Maybe you might not be looking at the right problem. Now, I started to look at the Bible, and a guy who I love in the Bible, and a great application of finding the cause, not the symptom, was Gideon. Everyone know who Gideon is, yeah? In Judges chapter 6, again, the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites. Because the power of Midian was so oppressive, the Israelites prepared shelters for themselves in mountain clefts, caves, and strongholds. Whenever the Israelites planted their crops, the Midianites, and all the otherites, invaded the country. Basically, they came in, they ruined the land. They took everything off them. When Israelites cried to the Lord because of Midian, he sent them a prophet who said, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I snatched you from the power of Egypt and from the hand of all your oppressors. I drove them from before you and gave you the land. I said to you, I'm the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live. But you have not listened to me." We've got to the cause. The cause wasn't a horrible nation. The cause was they weren't listening to God. They weren't doing what God says. So God decides to treat the cause. The angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. He's treating the symptom. Gideon at this point is treating the symptom. They're going to get attacked. Let's hide it so that we can't be attacked. Treating the symptom. The angel comes along. "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior," says the angel to this guy who's hiding and trying to hide his food. But Sir Gideon replied, "If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Where are all his wonders that our fathers told us about when they said, 'Did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt?' But now the Lord has abandoned us and put us in the hand of Midian." He's seeing the symptom. His words are, let's look at the symptom. The Lord turned to him and said, "Go in the strength you have and save Israel out of the Midian's hand. Am I not sending you?" But Lord, Gideon asked, "How can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest and I'm the least in my family." He's actually standing there. He's just seeing, the symptom is, I'm a weak person. I'm in a situation where we're being attacked by more people. And he's seeing that as a problem. He's not seeing that the whole of his people, including his family, are worshipping the wrong God. But then, that same night, the Lord said to him, "Take the second bull from your father's herd, the one 7 years old. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on top of this height, using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down. Offer the second bull as a burnt offering." So Gideon took 10 of his servants and did as the Lord told him. Gideon did what God said. Instead of treating the symptom, i.e. going and attacking the Midianites, he got at the cause. The cause was people were following the wrong God. And it made a difference. Instead of going for the symptoms, he went for the cause. We've got a church here. For years, Mark will tell you, what do we normally tip out for regular attendance if we go to the peak? It's about 80 or so. And then people start to fall away from this church. Now, the obvious cause, we look at it, we think the symptom, okay, people don't want to come here when it's crowd, when there's a lot of people here. They think, oh, maybe we're doing something wrong as a church. Let's pray a bit harder. So we start praying that the presence of God will be in the meeting. And we think, oh, yeah, we need to get God to move. And maybe they're not coming because the Sunday school's too small and they're scared their kids being looked after. And we just look at all the symptoms and we try and treat the symptoms. But there's a real simple cause. The building ain't big enough. Simple. We've got a cause. So we as a church, and those who come here know, we're working towards solving that cause. We're building an extension out the back. This wall's coming down. We're building a stage going into the new building. That is treating the cause of the problem of why we don't get more than a certain number of people here. Whatever your building size is, there's only so many people you can fit in it. We could have thought, oh no, people aren't staying for long. Well, maybe we have to change the way we do church and run our services differently. No, that's not the cause. That's not the cause. We're extending the building. But I want to put some real life problems that some of us have. Now, some of these problems you might have, maybe this is an oversimplistic solution, but I want to get you thinking. Your wife or your mother, or even your dad, whatever, they're always nagging at you and trying to get you to do something. Now, you've got a few choices here. You could try and treat the symptom. You could move out of home, move away from your parents, or you could always try a new wife, trade her in for a new model, and find a non-nagging wife. You could treat the symptom. You don't like what's going on, or you could think, hold on a second, why is she going on at me about this all the time? What have I given her the reason to come at? And you get to the cause and think, hold on, why don't we just sit down and talk about this and find out what the cause is, why she's not happy? Instead of having two happy people, you've got two unhappy people in the same house. It's never going to be fun. Look at what the cause is, not your symptom. Another problem, you're always late for church. You keep turning up and the service has been running for 15 minutes. Now, of course, the easy solution to that one is you find a church where the service starts 15 minutes later. You could, or even just to be safe, find one where the service starts half an hour later. I used to belong to a networking group called BNI. Now, in America, one of their groups was saying, it's too early in the morning we start. We need to move the start of the meeting later. So they tried it. Instead of starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, they moved the start to 8 o'clock in the morning. So guess what happened to the people who were always arriving 15 minutes late? They weren't 15 minutes early. They were 15 minutes late for the next meeting or for the later meeting. So maybe if you're finding you're late for everything, it's not that everything is at the wrong time. Maybe it's your preparation. Your cause is the way you think, the way you act. Look at it and think, how am I going to get round this to get there on time? And actually plan ahead. I had a lady who worked for me when I used to work in retail. She said to me, she kept coming in late every morning. She said, it's the bus's fault. Every day the buses run late. And I said, let me get this right. You know the bus is going to run late. So you choose to get on the bus that you know is going to be here late. Whose fault's that? Is it the bus's fault or yours? And she reluctantly gave in and started getting the earlier bus. But look at the cause of what's going on. Bob, I like on this one. He treated a cause, not a symptom. Bob became type 2 diabetic a few years ago. And doctor said to him, here's some tablets that'll bring it down, but it's because you need to lose a little bit of weight. Instead of taking enough tablets to keep it under control, he decided to lose some weight. Stop taking tablets. You treat the symptom while he had to, but he got the root cause and sorted the cause out. Oh, no, am I allowed to say this next one in church? You're a married man, you've got a bad sex life. There's a few solutions to that. You can treat the symptom. You can start watching some porn. You can have an affair with another lady. I really don't recommend any of those solutions. In fact, let me put it bluntly, they're wrong. But that might be the way your mind works. I'm a driven man, I've got to do it. Another solution. Stop making the wife unimportant. Stop leaving her doing everything all the time, so that by the time you get to bed, she's not in the mood. When she's not looking forward to spending time with you. Why not decide your wife is the most important person in your life and you're going to make her know it? You're going to actually take her out on a date night. You're going to find out what she wants to do. You're going to buy her a bunch of flowers. I know bunches of flowers are not for men. The reason I think God invented bunches of flowers is because men can't see the point of them, but women can. If I give my wife a bunch of flowers, it's because I'm saying I care about you, not me. Because I find them a pain in the neck. You've got to clear them up. They make a mess in the floor as they start to droop. I can't stand them. I'm sure they're there just so men can say to women, I love you. You're important. I just want to say to you, if you're having problems in your relationship with your wife, don't think it's her that's the problem. Have a look and see, is the cause the way you treat her? Think outside the box, because your box is going to actually say it's her problem. Another symptom, you think you're Homer Simpson. You think you're a failure. I can't get anything right. One of the favourite sayings from Homer Simpson is, the first step towards failure is trying to do something. Treat the Simpson, never do anything. It works. You'll never fail if you never do anything. But let me tell you a better solution. Spend some time with God, some other people who you know and trust. Try some stuff and find out what you're good at and then go for it. And go for it wholeheartedly and really mean it. Because I got bored. I was fed up just working in a shop. And I started playing about with computers. Thankfully, I did it mainly to do some work for the church originally. But because I found something I was good at, I got involved in it. I've now got 2 computer businesses. I've got people working for me because I found what I was good at. What can you find that you're good at? And you can stop being a failure at trying to stuff you're rubbish at that's not in line with God's will, and then go for what you really are good at. Treat the symptom. No. Treat the cause. You're doing the wrong stuff. Maybe you've got no gifts of the Spirit flowing as they used to. You know, you used to be able to pray with people and you'd actually pray for them and they'd go flat on the floor and the Spirit of God would touch them. But now it doesn't happen. Maybe you wanted to have the word of prophecy and you still used to have it a bit and you used to speak in tongues a lot. It's not working, so you treat the symptom. Every time they say, do you want to be baptized in the Spirit, you go up the front to be prayed for. When you've got a visiting speaker who invites people to the front, you go and say, pray for me. I want the Spirit of God on my life. Is that a solution? Or is the real cause for it, you ain't spending any time with God? Serious. Ask yourself, what is the cause? Stop treating the symptom. Because you can pray for the Spirit to touch you as much as you like, as if you brush it off as you walk out the door to go home and watch that porn film or whatever it is you do at home. Don't be surprised if the Spirit of God's not on you. You've actually got to go home and think, okay, all right, wife's gone to bed. I'm going to sit and read my Bible for a bit. I'm going to flip onto one of the Christian channels. I'm going to put a worship song on. I'm going to get into God's presence. Not, I need to be prayed for more. You need to pray more. There's a difference. Treat the cause. That's if you've got problems which you're trying to solve. As I say, you need to start thinking outside the box. Solve the cause of the problem, not the symptom. But then there's people who look into their future. I want to say, who's got a future they want to build? Who wants their future to build? Or who is happy with more of the same for the rest of their life? Then maybe you might need to be starting to think how you're going to get there. I just thought about some boxes that we put ourselves into when we're thinking about the future. First box, my ideas are important. My way of thinking it through is the most important way. And, you know, I've got to do it my way because I'm really good at what I do. And your future ain't quite working out as you thought it should. Well, I want to say, try aligning your aims with God's aims in your life. Guess what? Who's going to be right, you or God? I can give you a clue. It ain't going to be you if you're disagreeing with God. Put your aims to line up with God. Anybody ever heard of St. Paul? Yeah? Reasonably well known. Occasionally gets mentioned in the Bible. St. Paul. But Paul in the Bible. And you read about when Paul first met God. And somebody came to pray with Paul. The Lord told him, go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a name of Tarsus named Paul. But he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. Lord, Ananias said, I have heard many reports about this man and all the harm he has done to your saints in Jerusalem. And he has come here with the authority from the chief of priests to arrest who call on your name. But the Lord said to Ananias, go, this man is my chosen instrument to carry my name before the Gentiles and their kings and before the people of Israel. This guy thinks he knows more than God. God, you told me to go and pray with this guy and he's dangerous. You wouldn't want me to go and do something dangerous, would you, God? And God says, actually, now you mention it, yes. Because I've got something lined up for this guy. And he's going to be good. And then when he went with God, Paul, who's a guy who's top in the synagogue, he's top in the temple, he's respected, he knows the Jewish religion, he knows everything about it, people know him and respect him. So you would think that God's going to anoint him and send him out to go and talk to the Jewish nation. Where does God send him? To the Gentiles. Do you know why I think God wanted to send him to the Gentiles? It's one, the word had to get out wider. And two, because he wouldn't have been listened to. He'd have been killed quicker. God had a plan. God knew what he was doing. You might think your plan is better than God's. You might think avoiding the danger by not going and praying with Paul or not taking the risk God's put on your heart is a good idea because it's safer. You might think that I'm good at this. I've got the connections over here. And God's saying, actually, I don't want you to use those connections. I'm going to open up some connections over here. You're looking at your future. You're looking at your ideas, and your aims are not the same as God. I want to say to you, align your aims with God. Don't leave yourself in a box where you think your ideas, your thoughts are more important than God's. That's a box you've got to think outside of. And then the second box, this is how it's done. This is the correct way to do it. There is a way. If I want to become a missionary, I go and apply, go to a missionaries Bible college, and then they get there and then I get sent out. Do you know there's some people who don't follow the standard way of doing it? Anybody ever heard of a lady called Jackie Pullinger? And this lady just felt God said to her, I'm calling you somewhere, get on the boat. She got on the boat, and when she got to Hong Kong, God said, get off. So she did. And she basically opened up a major ministry. She didn't go and do things the correct way. She didn't limit herself to the way everybody else solves the problem. Just because you've got something you're aiming for, you're aiming your future, don't limit yourself just to the way it seems the usual way to do it. Paul again writing in 1 Corinthians 9, though I am free and belong to no man, I make myself a slave to everyone, to win as many as possible. To the Jews I become a Jew, to win the Jews. To those under the law I become like one under the law, though I myself am not under the law, so as to win those under the law. To those not having the law I become like one not having the law, though I am not free from God's law, but am under Christ's law, so as to win those not having the law. To the weak I become weak, to win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that by all possible means I might save some. I do all this for the sake of the gospel, that I may share in its blessings. He didn't limit himself to the way things were done. Because, to be honest, even going out and preaching the gospel was new. To the Jewish nation, it was a very insular religion. You didn't go out and try and make people Jewish. You didn't teach them Judaism and get people to join the temple and open a synagogue in their town. You just looked after yourself. But Paul suddenly got to the point where he's being called to reach out to people, Jews and non-Jews. He's got to come up with new methods. He can't use the way that the synagogue would go out and teach the local people because they were pre-trusted. He had to come out a way to go and talk to people who didn't already trust him. He had to think completely outside the box. He couldn't use the standard ways of working. Have you got a goal or a vision in your life and you can't see how the normal way of doing it is going to get there? Well, let's say thinking outside the box is work out why you're putting it, that's the only way to do it. Why are you limiting yourself to doing it in the few ways you've thought of? Do you know, if you went home tonight and sat and prayed and said, God, open my mind, I want to hear from you. you might find that God actually works with you. My problem is I'm a naturally out-of-the-box thinker. When I've got a problem and I'm praying, I'm giving it over to God. Do you know the most difficult thing in my mind? And this will be different for different people, is actually not sitting there thinking of out-of-the-box solutions to the problem. Because every time I've thought of an out-of-the-box solution to a problem, God comes up with something completely different. I always had a problem that I've got some software that needs rewriting I can't afford to. So my out-of-the-box solution was go and sell some shares to people, get them come in and raise some money. And God came up with an out-of-the-box solution. He sent some of my customers to me and says, we want to pay for it. We're not looking for shares. Hey, that was completely out of the box. That then didn't quite work out. So then God opened up a possibility. I just reading through some things about getting some funding, and I just wrote to my guy who's my business guy who I work with, and he picked up on one of them. Now I've got the EU, believe it or not, paying for half the development costs. I'm only paying half the development costs. Plus I've got top international accountant in Anglia Ruskin University. I've got the whole of the software development team to back up my staff. And I'm actually got the best team possible to do it. I would never have thought of it like that. Even with me thinking outside the box, I would have tried to limit myself. Sometimes, if you think outside the box naturally, I'm going to tell you, try to stop thinking when you're praying. Let God direct you. If you can't think outside of the box and you're straight down the line, that's how we do it. Same solution. Start saying, God, I need you to talk to me. I want to tell you, everybody in this room is here because God's got a plan on your life. How many thinks their plan on their life matches God's? I think it's probably unlikely. You make big picture, you might get some bits, but God's got some great plans. The only way you're going to get there is stop going with your good ideas and go for some God ideas. Now, the next one might catch you out. Plan from the beginning is a box. That might sound stupid. If you want to get somewhere, the natural way of thinking is I want to get from here to there. Your natural way of thinking is, what's the first step in that direction? Anybody when they were a kid, did you ever do those Get the Beano or some of the other ones where they have a maze in them to try and solve? Yeah? Do you know what I found as a kid the easiest way to solve these mazes? Was not actually to start at the beginning. I just downloaded this one off the internet. You've got to get from the start to the finish there. Everyone see the red light flashing? Get it out of the way. So there's your start, there's your finish line. Okay, now you start here, you're thinking, well, do I go down here? And you can go spend no time going around in circles trying to find it, and it takes forever. Do you know the quickest way to find the solution is actually start at the end? If you go back here, well, you know you're not going to go there. You can see there, go all the way up there. Choice is either go there. Well, you can see that's probably not going to go anywhere at a glance. So you just go around there, go down into here, over here, round here, up here. Oops, there we go. Going wrong way. Sorry, no, down. But, yeah, where am I going? I've got this one wrong now. Yeah, down to the arm, round there, down there, up. Down there, round there, down there. Now, if you try doing that starting there, it's going to be a lot more complicated. You start at the end, you can do it a lot quicker. I want to say to you, if you know where you want to go, start thinking where you've got to be to get there, not where you go next. Start thinking, plan from the end. Because when the serpent tempted mankind, God started off with the solution. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, cursed are you above all the livestock and all the wild animals. You will crawl on your belly and will eat dust all the days of your life. and I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring of her and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. He's actually saying the solution is your head's going to be crushed. He's got the end idea in mind. Had to work out then how to get Jesus there so he could do it. But in your life, if you've got some problems, you can start in reverse. Because if I'd been Joseph and I'd had this prophecy over me saying that you're going to be a leader of the nation of Egypt, my first job would have been to get a camel ride into Egypt and to go and get a job as a senior official somewhere. But God was like, but you think about it backwards, no matter how senior an official, you're not going to be trusted enough to be made second in command by. You've got to be in the right place at the right time to talk when there's a major problem. Being in prison might seem a bit out of the way and a bit of an out-of-the-box situation, but it's working backwards. If you work backwards from it, it's easier to get to the top from the bottom there than it is to try and become an official. God, if you start looking at problems, instead of just thinking, how do I take a step over there, just think how you've got to get there and what position you've got to be in at different times in your life. Pre-plan it. I needed to move office because I had to get from where I was because I was losing the rent on it. I could have just phoned up a removal company, which is the method to get there. But first I found the office. I found where I wanted to go. I worked out then the date I was going to move. I decided whether I needed a removal company. I then booked a removal company that met all my needs. If you have a vision for your future, you start thinking about the final step, what's going to lead into where you want to go, and then work out how you want to get there. Work it backwards. It's a lot easier and a lot quicker. It's out of the box. It's out of the box. Sometimes you do need to, once you've got a vague route, you can then start looking at the next step. Sometimes you go the next step, it doesn't work out. But if you've got an idea of how you're getting there, it's going to work better. I want to say to you, who's going to get you the idea of where to get there, you or God? I want to say to you, start listening to God. Start listening to God. Maybe think things in a different order. Thinking outside the box. Starting off, the cross was outside the box. God thinks outside the box. You can solve problems by thinking outside the box. Look at the cause, not the symptom. And if you want to move towards the future, you've got to start thinking about the future. And you've got to start looking how you're going to get there. But look at where you want to get to. Let's just stand and pray. Father, I thank you that you are the most creative, original, different thinker to anyone else in history. In fact, you're so different to anyone in history, you created history. And Lord, we want to hear from you. Lord, we want to think your way. We don't want to just think our way. We don't want to limit ourselves. We don't want to put ourselves into boxes. We want to start thinking outside the box. Lord, I just pray, Lord, you open the minds. You open our minds to hear from you. We want to be what you've called us to be, and we want to get there in the route and the way and the methods you've called us. And Lord, I just pray, Lord, for anyone standing here and they've got causes that they don't understand, Lord, I just pray you open their mind to causes. Lord, to problems in this room, I pray you open people's minds so they can start to see the cause of their issues and they can start to treat the cause. And those with a vision for the future, I suppose you start to open it up, give them out-of-the-box ideas of where you want to go with them and what you want to do with their future. And I pray, Lord, that we move towards the out-of-the-box solution because we have an unlimited God and we don't want to limit you in our lives. We want an unlimited life moving within the limits that you set, not that we set. Amen.